The commission on an agenda item may do so during this public hearing. And that will be when we get to item 6.1. We request that you do not have to fill out a form, right? The form is for non.
Just sign in if they would
Okay,
like
we do
to.
request that you sign in if you could, please. When it is time for public comments, we will limit the comments to 3 minutes. So once you've reached 3 minutes, we'll let you know that you've reached the 3 minutes and give you an opportunity to give your closing statement. All right, so we're now going to move on to item number 4, reviewing the minutes from the August 15, 2022 meeting. And all of the commissioners have been provided a copy of the minutes.
I motion to approve minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on August 15th. All those in favor to approve, oh, do we have a second, actually?
I'll second it.
Okay,
I
we have
wasn't
a
here, but
second.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion has passed.
You with it?
Yes. Mr. Ragland, I've just called you on my cell phone and I'm going to put you on speaker under the microphone.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll now move on to item number 5. We'll receive a staff presentation from Director Embick. And looks like you have a couple items you want to discuss, is that correct?
No, not today, just the
Not today, just the one? Okay.
Just the presentation.
We'll turn the time over to Director Embick for the staff presentation.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is a request for the Planning and Zoning Commission to recommend the City Council approve conditional use permit request Z-76-21 for a community rehabilitation facility to assist individuals to recover from alcohol addiction. The subject property is in Graham County, parcel number 102-22-415 and is addressed as 110 West 5th Street. It has been vacant and previously used as a hotel. The current property is zoned C2 Highway Commercial. The purpose of this zoning district is to provide for commercial uses and services generally maintained in central business district fringe areas where the density of traffic and building area is not conducive to desirable residential living. This district encourages heavier commercial establishments intended for highway locations. A shelter facility is an allowed use in this zone subject to the approval of a conditional use permit and subject to the following limitations. The agency operating the shelter facility shall comply with the following requirements. They shall have a written management plan, including staff training, neighborhood outreach, security, screening of residents, and services such as training and counseling. On-site management has to be provided when they are in operation, and staff and services shall be provided to assist residents in obtaining permanent shelter and income, and they shall house no more than 15 residents. Number 2, the distance requirement, since this code was written, the federal law has changed, that's no longer applicable. And they do need to maintain a minimum 20-foot rear yard and 20-foot side setback for residential property. The shelter facility shall maintain good standing with the city and/or state licenses for the owners, operators, and/or staff. Section 17.840, definitions of the municipal code of the city of Safford defines a shelter facility as a supervised, publicly or privately operated shelter designed to provide temporary housing accommodations to indigent, needy, homeless, or transient persons or families who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. The shelter may also provide ancillary services such as counseling or vocational training. After consultation with the city attorney, the 1,320 feet distance requirement is not allowed under federal law. The residential property to the north is vacant and recently burned. The owners of this property are considering purchasing it, and they are here this evening to represent Mr. DeMasi. Mr. DeMasi held a neighborhood meeting on July 22nd, 2022, and the comments from attendees are attached in your packet. The current land use is vacant. The surrounding land uses are vacant, burned to the north, and I have photos of these also. State Highway 70 and commercial uses to the south. South First Avenue and a car dealership is to the east, and a vacant possible respite center and one residence in a C2 zone are to the west. The surrounding zoning is north R16, which is a residential use, south C2, east C2, and west C2. Staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission request City Council to approve conditional use permit 7-76-21 for a community rehabilitation facility to assist individuals to recover from alcohol addiction to be located on Graham County parcel 102-22-415. Here's a photo of the street view of the property. You'll notice the large wrought iron gate that they've installed. Figure 2 is the possible respite center that's moving ahead with the county and the city council. They're working on implementing that project.
Is that the building, the white building, or?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the palm tree and then the little red awning there, that's that building that they're looking at remodeling into a daytime respite center. This is the car mechanic shop dealership to the east, and this is the residential burned property that's been vacant to the north. And with that, I will stand for questions, and I can leave this photo up if you'd like.
I have a couple questions just for clarification purposes, and I apologize if I put you on the spot with one of them. But first, also just because we do have a lot of visitors tonight, I just want to clarify a conditional use permit will only apply to the parcel for the person who has petitioned tonight, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And you are also allowed to add conditions to that. So you can recommend conditions to the council, such as an opaque fence, things of that nature. And that's why the section in there states they have to be current with all state and local laws. So this conditional use permit only applies to this applicant on this property. And if the use is discontinued, the conditional use permit is void at that time.
Okay, so if they stopped using this as a rehabilitation facility, then that conditional use permit would end. It doesn't carry over to,
No, ma'am.
would it carry over to a new owner of the property?
If they sold the business, yes, because the use was continued. So if they sold the business and they would still have to meet the standards and any conditions that you would put on the application.
Okay, just like once they close the facility, then the permit
Yes.
would stop.
And
Okay.
there are some things that are non-conforming uses that after 6 months, then they have to revert to the primary use. But in the case of a conditional use, if that is discontinued, it's the end of that. So they would have to reapply.
Okay. One other question,
Mhm.
and I apologize, this might put you on the spot, but in your presentation, we are calling this a shelter facility, which I would think, and it does talk about how that's temporary housing.
And I'll
But
bring
then the
definition.
recommendation says rehabilitation facility. What's the difference between a shelter facility versus a rehabilitation? I know what the difference is, like, for the use, but as far as zoning, is there any difference?
So the definition is a shelter facility. So in this case, the definition that is there about exactly what will happen there is the definition in the code. And they are wanting, in this case, to have rehabilitation services as well. So it's not a homeless shelter in that nature. It would be people seeking treatment or help getting a job, families with no place to stay. So our code defines a shelter facility. This will not be a, per se, homeless shelter.
Does our code have anything that describes a rehabilitation facility?
Only for medical rehabilitation, such as a stroke or hip replacement.
Okay.
I've got a
Go ahead.
question. To double on her point about the conditional use permit, it's a broad definition of a facility. In our recommendations, would we be able to limit the uses in the conditional use permit, say for alcohol treatment facility and not for anything else? Or is that not allowed?
So you could make any reasonable conditions. So if you are wanting to make sure, and your recommendation goes to council.
Correct.
So if there's something you would like to stress, then that would be fine if you make the recommendation that it only be for,
But the permit would still be valid if any of the uses in the definition were still being used?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are we familiar with any other type of facility like this in cities the size of Safford?
Mr. DeMasi owns facilities in, the applicant's representative can explain, but he owns them in several communities, and Flagstaff is probably the smallest. And the only other community I know of that has something similar to this of our size is Bisbee.
And how successful have they been?
Quite successful. And Mr. DeMasi's representatives can explain how many people he serves, what type of treatment they provide, and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Might I clarify your question from earlier a little as well?
Mhm.
So, I'll just read directly out of the code. A conditional use permit may be revocable, may be granted for a limited time period, or may be granted subject to such conditions as the council may prescribe. Conditions may include, but shall not be limited to, drainage, buffers, fences, walls, landscaping, street dedications and improvements, location of site access, signs, hours of operation, a development schedule, and such other conditions as the council may deem necessary to ensure the compatibility of the use with surrounding development and uses and to preserve public health, safety, and welfare.
Okay. I remember this coming up before, I can't remember if it was the same location. Do you remember? Maybe you weren't here yet. Do you remember?
Not in that location. I don't
Okay.
remember that.
All right, I think that answers my questions. So, Ed, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I think we are now going to close the staff presentation. We'll move on to item number 6. We're now going to open the public hearing. So this is the opportunity for the citizens to comment on the agenda item for this conditional use permit. And again, we would like to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And when you do come up to comment, if you could please state your name. Do you want their address or just their name?
Just name.
Yeah, state your name. I would like to invite the applicant to speak first and give the applicant a time to share anything that they feel is important for us to know. So we'll go ahead and open up the public comments. So we'll move on to item 6.1 for public comments. So if our applicant could please come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will be representing Mr. Demasi. He is the applicant. My name is Indy Aurora. I am the co-owner of the property. Mr. Demasi was not able to make it due to some unforeseen circumstances. So he has asked me to address the council. This facility is not necessarily a shelter. It is for people who have already gone through the rehabilitation process from alcohol or substance abuse. It is for people who are trying to rehabilitate and get acclimated back into society, functioning members who are looking for jobs, who are looking to develop certain skill sets, and be reintroduced as normal citizens once again. Mr. Demasi's facilities have had a high success rate. I have visited a few of them. He focuses mainly on women and children that are allowed to come and stay on the property. This is not open to single males. This facility will only be focusing on women and children, majority, or families. Say it's a husband and wife and their children. So this facility will be only for people who have already gone through the rehabilitation process and now are looking to improve their skill set and get back acclimated back into society. Their focus is on nutrition, education, as well as job placement. And Mr. Demasi has a full-fledged team of nutritionists, a full-fledged team of doctors and other healthcare providers that do assist in that. There will be security that Mr. Demasi will be paying for, and that will be on site. And he has assured us that, and that could be a part of the conditional use permit that the council can set as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So that could also be a condition that the council can also set in the conditional use permit, that Mr. Demasi has to provide security on site.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Who pays for the individuals to become part of this or have a membership in this?
Mr. Demasi is self-funded. He has investors into this facility. There's nothing that is required of the state or the individuals that are staying there for them to pay.
So anybody can just apply and if they meet the requirements that they have a need, they could attend and.
Correct. They have to go.
They don't have to have any financial obligation.
No, sir. But Mr. Demasi has a background check that he does regarding who comes and stays. It'll be open for members of this community and not, say, somebody from Tucson or in other areas. I mean, which they could, but I don't know how Mr. Demasi does that part of his application process.
How many other facilities does he have?
The ones that I have visited I've only visited the Tucson one, but I know he has, I think, 4 facilities, if I'm
About 4.
not mistaken. Yes.
So you mentioned that the applicants would be a person who's already completed some type of an addiction recovery program.
That is correct.
So is that required to be approved, that they give some type of verification that they've completed a program?
Yes, I've actually asked that of Mr. Demasi, and usually when they do complete some type of rehabilitation program, they do get some type of documentation stating so, yes.
How
And they-
long would one be staying at a facility like this?
No more than 30 days.
And at the completion of that, is there programs to help them find their own place, or are they put outside the gate and said, good luck?
They are situated in two different areas. Whether if they actually have to go through a job process, get a job, and then they help them locate into housing or some other areas that Mr. Demasi, his aspect of business that he does. But they are not just put out on the gate and into the community. They have to actually constantly be working and figuring out, what the plan is, and Mr. Demasi helps them figure out that plan. And it's mainly for women who want to get their kids back and get back into society.
I don't have any other questions.
We have in the packet, it says conditional use supplement requirements. Has that been submitted by the applicant?
Yes, ma'am. They have their site plan. You'll see how they're remodeling the property. They have their statement of what they will be doing on the property, and they did meet those requirements. They don't have a development schedule as of yet, because if they aren't issued the conditional use permit, they won't have one.
Okay, I do want to address in the packet, the conditional use supplemental requirements that have been submitted. There's a section there that says hours of operation, and I'll read this since the public part doesn't have it, but it says hours of operation. Because this will be an in-care rehabilitation facility, staff will be on site 24/7, but open hours to the public will be limited to normal business hours or by appointment. I don't see anything in here that addresses like hours of those who live in the facility. Is there any type of a curfew for those who live in the facility?
At his other facilities, there is, they do have a strict schedule that they adhere by. And I am not currently familiar to exact point of when the curfew takes effect.
Okay, but in his other facilities, that is a common practice?
Correct.
That those who are staying in the facility would have a curfew?
Yes, they adhere by strict rules of the facility.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, does anyone have any other questions
I do not.
for the applicant? Okay, we'll continue with, thank you. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, I would like to thank the commission's time
Okay,
for letting me speak on Mr. Demasi's
thank you for
behalf.
coming.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and continue with public comments. So anyone else who would like to comment, please go ahead and come up to the microphone. Yes, come to the microphone and then state your name. Oh, you have a question?
May I?
You can,
Mr. Meredith, I live in the
ask
neighborhood.
it through the chair.
Could you go ahead and stand,
To come to
please?
the microphone. You can just wait and then answer.
Okay, go ahead and come to the microphone so we can hear you, and also your question can be picked up with the recording. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Meredith. I live in the neighborhood, 413 South 3rd Avenue. I was raised here in Safford and gone for a while and came back to retire. So, a few things, just I can't quite comprehend. This fellow, Mr. Demasi, is a multi-billionaire, I guess, who can afford to self-fund multiple shelters in Arizona and other places?
I am only aware of the ones in Arizona. I am not aware of his other business practices. That might be multinational.
And why would he choose this little Smallville to bless us with his generosity?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, and we do probably need to keep the questions specifically to the property and the conditional use permit. This hearing is specifically for the property, and the
Is there a license
recommendation-
required?
Yes.
There,
Is there a professional license required in order to operate this
I'm gonna
facility?
defer that to Director Brickle.
Yes, the state does require it to be licensed, and then it will have to have a City of Safford business license as well.
So there will be a business license. What state license is required?
They've already been
Have to have
in
a
the,
professional license of some type.
Yes.
yes, and they're in the process of applying for that, and I have a copy of it here.
Is it a medical, it's like a medical use?
Yes.
Correct.
License, okay, so there will be a state license for a medical use facility?
Correct.
Yes, and I
Okay.
do have a copy that they are in the process of applying for that.
Okay, so the answer to your question is yes, there will be a state license for a medical facility.
There will be, but there's not now.
It will be, if they get this conditional use permit, they can't license the facility through the state without this.
And we can make that a recommendation
License
for the
to
conditional
practice,
use
there's
permit.
no
It
license
is, and
number
the state
available.
does
So you have to have you have to have a facility in order to have a license to practice? I've never heard of that.
Well,
Mr.
this-
Demasi?
Usually you get your license to practice.
This is not a medical license. We're talking about, there is a state
Like
license
psych-
for the
yeah, yeah.
facility to be used for this purpose of the medical care that they'll get for the rehabilitation. So the license, it's kind of like a nursing home is required to get a license to be a nursing home. Assisted living care is required to get a license to be an assisted living. This is a rehabilitation facility that will also require a state license.
Then I was mistaken. I thought there would be professional services other than just a flop house.
There will be professional services. Anybody,
Then
yeah,
they have professional licenses.
they will.
Like a psychiatrist has a license, medical doctor has a
Yes.
license. They would need a sociology or a psychiatry license, and I couldn't find one.
So your question is, will the staff have
Well,
a
if-
license, a professional license?
In order to let the zoning, you would expect that these questions would be answered. The other thing is, how do we know that there won't be pedophiles or violent offenders?
They did
Because
mention a
someone-
background check.
They do a
I
background check.
ask.
Right, no, those are
ask
good
and-
questions. Yes, those are good
Because
questions.
he asked.
Yes.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
We will be doing background checks on anybody who's coming into the facility.
Are these people gonna be from the Safford and the Gila Valley, or are they gonna come in from Tucson? And
They're gonna be from Safford and from basically Graham County, yes.
I still can't get my,
Sorry, I did not understand your answer. From Safford and from?
Basically Graham County, Safford, Pima, Thatcher.
I just can't get my mind around
Why is it, I can answer why can't you get your mind around why is he doing this? I met Mr. James Demasi. My dad owned Beverage House here for 20 years.
Could you please come to the microphone? Sir, is that most of your questions?
No, but I think,
But
sir,
yeah, if
he's
you-
puzzled why Mr. Demasi chose.
But if
that.
you could please come to the microphone and state your name.
Yeah,
And-
the rest of
and-
this stuff has nothing to
Okay.
do with the zoning, has to do with the.
So sir, if you, thank you for your comments. If you could please state your name and your connection to
Good
the
evening,
applicant.
City Council. My name is Gary Sandu. I'm the co-owner of the property. To address sir's question, why is DeMassey interested in Safford? My dad and Mr. Indy's dad, they owned Beverage Palace for 12 years. I recently took over. We bought Sal's Market 2 years ago. I met James DeMassey through at a coffee shop through a mutual friend, and they were discussing some things. So I thought this will be better for Safford because I want to do something good in this town. We've been here for 12 years. We have paid our taxes. We're doing good for the town. This is why Mr. James DeMassey was interested. That's why I approached him. I was like, I think there's a town that could use this facility.
But you
Plain
guys
and simple.
kind of has a.
It's,
you guys-
sorry.
You guys sell the net price of your beverage patents.
Excuse me.
It doesn't make sense.
We sell there's 2 smoke shops to address that too, but that's not related to that. I mean, to address your questions.
That's the problem.
Okay, excuse me. We cannot have a dialogue. We can only have comments. So we need to give him his opportunity to express his comments, and then when he's finished, if you would like to express your comments, you can, but we cannot have a dialogue going back and forth.
So that was one program that I thought would benefit the city. I'm also working with Tim. He owns 3 counties. We're doing some other programs for boys and girls clubs. So this is the only reason. That's why he's interested. He's not a billionaire. He has investors who family members have gone through same situations and they want to help out. That is the only reason Mr. DeMassey is here in Safford, because I asked him to, and I told him about this town. Does that address you? I think he's gone.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you explaining the connection and kind of how we found out about Safford. Okay.
Hi, I'm Jenny Hall, and I know that the other neighbors that are here, there's people who live there, there's people who have businesses there. I'm a little unique because I have both. I live next door to my office, which is Benefit Intelligence, right there on the highway next to Casa Mañana. I've been there since 2014. I've lived in my house since 2003. So I've been here quite a while in the same place. And my biggest concern right now is not that we don't necessarily need a facility of this type. I am just not sure that having it, first of all, at the busiest intersection of the town, when there are going to be children present, with or without security, if their parents are having to get a job and be gone all day, who's watching these kids, and where are they gonna be? It was just a couple weeks ago, the I-10 was shut down. Traffic at that intersection, I don't know if anybody else had to try and get through there, but it was shut down the entire day, 4:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. There were semis coming through, cutting through the neighborhoods, trying to beat the other traffic. It was insane. I just don't think that first of all, is a safe place. Second of all, the amount of homeless traffic that has been driven through that little corridor right there. There is a outpatient drug rehab facility at Main and Highway 70. There is also one over next to CCAP it's an outpatient, I believe they do methadone. So we have people walking from those 2 places through our neighborhood. We had to put a gate up. I cannot leave my office door unlocked during the day anymore. I have to have my clients make appointments because we've had so much homeless traffic and people coming in looking for money to use the restroom, trying to do whatever. We've had to call the police more times than I can count for people coming through. We have one young lady who has some issues. She's been completely naked standing in front of my office more than once. Also, the initial letter we received was for drug rehab. Then when we went to the first public meeting, it was, oh no, it's a shelter for women and children. And then we got another letter that said that it was a drug rehab. So I think we're also a little confused as to exactly what the usage is going to be. So I know that, not everybody feels the same way that we do or that I do. I do have serious concerns just because it seems like the story is changing. I don't know for sure who's gonna be manning that security. Is there really gonna be security there? And I also have a unique perspective because of my job and the whole sober living benefit that is offered. And it actually has a very, very low success rate overall. If you were to look at statistics for sober living and rehab, it has a very low success rate. And that concerns me as well, because if these people after 30 days are done and they're released out into the community, essentially, whether, even if they have a home, what's to say that once they're done and they start getting regular paychecks, they're not going to go right back to where they were. So that is my concern. There was also a letter that was submitted to the record that was signed by me and also Marty Allred, who owns property right there as well. He was not able to be here tonight because he's out of town. So.
Okay, thank you. Your 3 minutes is up. Are you
That's
good?
it. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
My name is Doris Eligehausen. I do own the property north.
Could you move that little clip? Thank you.
My name is Doris Eligehausen. I do own the property north of the motel, where the house burned down. I am a little bit confused, to be honest, tonight, because till now I thought it is a rehab for alcoholics. Right now I learned it is for women and children. I do not see that it is a really good place for women and children there at the highway. I also do not see that it is a good place for drug rehab or alcohol rehabs because of the closeness of to be as close to the gas station on the other corner of 191 and Highway 70. I do know that for sure we are in need, most likely, for such a facility. I don't only see that this is a good location for it. That's the point. And I do know that he offered me to or to consider to buy my vacant land. We have not yet agreed on anything like that, and I do not really can say that whether I'm going to sell to him or not. I do know that the fire of the house damaged his motel, and I'm for sure reliable for that issue, but I have not yet decided. And I also do not really understand what the credentials of Mr. DeMasi are. I could not find anything on the internet, to be honest. I only know from my professional background that success rates for rehab for alcoholics and also drug addiction is really, really low. And I do not see, I would like to have the question answered, what happens after 30 days if they, for example, have not been able to find a job, if they have not been able to find a house. We were told that they will not be set in front of the gate, but what happens if they haven't been able to find anything?
You want to answer that?
Yes, please.
They can reapply for the program. And if we see fit that they have applied themselves, it can be readmitted. And other question that
I'm
you're
sorry,
saying-
could you please go
Yeah.
to the microphone? We need to make sure that Ed can hear you. Ed, can you hear the comments?
Yes.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
so they can reapply to re-enter the program, but they have to show progress. If they have shown certain progress, certain levels, then they can be readmitted. Other question was, who's going to look after them? The medical staff, the nurses, these are trained nurses who hold nurses' credentials, are there 24/7. Medical staff is present on the site 24/7. How many? It depends. The state regulates that according to the state license. So depends on how many people are taken in. State has a certain requirement. Certain amount of nurses are required per level of patients. So they will be adjusted according to that. So if we take in 10, if those are, let's say, I don't know exactly what the state regulations are because I'm not Mr. DeMasi, but when we read through the program, the medical staff will be there as needed. So if there is 10 people, the 2 nurses are required, 2 nurses are present 24/7. If it's 15, 3 nurses are required, they are present 24/7. They will change their shifts. Security guard is there. We have the gates on both sides of the properties that control the traffic from our facility in and out. And they have to check in with the staff before they can go in or out of the facility. Other question was, why there's so many homeless people, or I was kind of puzzled by this question that you guys are posing. These homeless people are walking around, so why are you guys not helping these homeless people or do anything? If we're trying to do something for these people and they're not receiving any help.
Okay, any other, anything else that you would like to clarify? No?
Does
Okay.
that answer your question, ma'am? Okay.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
I just would like to emphasize again that the success rate, especially for alcoholics, that's what I looked up because I was aware of till now, is really, really low right now. I do not know about the success rate with the treatment with drug addiction. The point is, I would like to know through what kind of rehab they have to go before they qualify for this program. That means, have they been in a hospital for detoxification, for example, and for how long? And I would just like to know more. You have to understand my background. I'm a physician originally, and I just don't get it, to be honest.
So I think the
And that's
question
basically
is, there is an application that has a requirement that they've completed a drug rehabilitation program. Is that just a detox program, or is it more of like a 30 days, 60, 90 day? If you could come to the podium and answer that, please.
That detox program is set by the state standard for a rehabilitation facility that they would be required to go through. Just like Mr. DeMasi's facility will be licensed and credentialed by the state, healthcare facility requirements, it's the same thing, that they have to come from a credentialed facility, that they've gone through an X number of days or months that they have completed.
So it could be like a treatment program where they did 90 days, or it could be a detox where they did 3 days. Could it be either?
No,
or?
it's not in 3 days. It's more than I believe one of his facilities is 30 days at least that they have to show that they completed the program, and they had to go through actual drug tests or whatnot. So
Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay, any other comments from the public? Thank you. And please state your name.
My name is Mark Gurna, and I was actually at the original meeting that we had that day. It was us and the All Reds and Irene Avalos, and it's kind of interesting that when this was presented that day, it has changed so much. Because when we were there, they said, and Jennifer was a little confused, it was an alcoholic rehabilitation center. Then it went to a substance abuse center. Then it went to a homeless shelter for women, and I'm quoting because I didn't make this up, because we wrote a letter to the city right after this because we were concerned. A homeless shelter for women with children in the busiest intersection of Safford. The amount of traffic that goes through there on a daily basis. Now, I go around and I check the offices there as a courtesy because Jennifer and I are married. And the amount of traffic that goes through there on a daily basis is unbelievable. Now, they say, somebody said that it was I'll read it, that this project needs to be followed through and not cancel the effort to satisfy the real and imagined concerns of a few. Now, we have the right to protect our properties. We have the right to keep our area safe just like everybody else does. Now, this man mentioned that, why don't we help the poor? I donate to St. Vincent de Paul. I donate to a lot of different shelters. Sometimes when you hand these people money, they don't turn around and use it for the right reasons. Now, what concerns me is that, okay, these people come in. Now, I just heard when we were there, they said Safford. He mentioned a comment that it could be from other people from other cities. Okay, if they come into Safford, they check into this facility, and it doesn't work, well then guess what? We've just added more people that are gonna be out into the streets. That's very concerning to us. because like I'm saying, the amount, and the owner of Casa Mañana is here. He can probably tell you the exact same thing that I'm saying. It's not that we don't want to help people. I just don't think this is the area or the place, because we were here 2 years ago voicing our concerns for the same property. What's going to change? I mean, we can say, oh, well, we're going to have security and we guarantee it's not going to work. And that's the word that the gentleman used that day. You know what? There's no guarantee in life. We can have security. There's still going to be things that are going on. Walmart has security and there's still shoplifting. So at the end of the day, we look at these things, and it's very concerning to me that we can't even get a letter stating exactly what the purpose of it was. That's concerning to me. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name.
My name is Gilbert Valenciano, and I live at 308 First Street. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I live at 308 First Street, and I used to get the alcohol and pipes at this guy's place, and I don't know how this is going to help the neighborhood at all. Between this guy's supposed to be helping people, and then this guy sells the alcohol, I don't know how that helps.
We're only talking about the property, and we need to, let's keep our comments specifically to the property and the use of the property.
Well, I don't know how that's going to help with anything, because there's a bunch of kids that play there. I raised 5 kids, and I don't understand how that's going to help with anything.
Okay.
It's a residential and kids area. I don't know why there needs to be a rehabilitation there. My parents were in rehabilitation, and they drugged me through that shit my whole life, and they're still not better, and I'm the one that has a job, and I still take care of them. And I don't know how that's going to help at all.
Okay, any other comments?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's up to the individual and for them to decide. Mr. Demasi only provides the resources. So that's all.
I kind of want to add on one more thing. You guys are saying, who knows who's going to come in and out of the facility. If you run it as a motel, there's no background checks on the customers or whoever comes check into the motel. All these motels on 5th Street, who's running background checks on them? Who's coming in and out of the motels? So if we run it as a regular motel, let's say we go back to running it as a motel, how does that change that? How's that any different from what you guys are raising as a concern?
The motel sat empty the majority of the time.
We ran it, so every motel on 5th Street is sitting empty?
Yours was.
Yeah, because we were changing our plan.
Okay, we'll keep the comments to the use of the property. That's what we're here for, is just recommendations for the use of the property and the request for the conditional use permit.
Hi, I'm Irene Avalos, and I live right behind the hotel there. And we were never told that it was for women and children from the very beginning, okay? There is a bus stop that stops at this Catholic church, so there's kids walking home every day after school. What makes them think that they're gonna stay in their property or that the Golden Gates are gonna be locked up when before, when it was a hotel, they were breaking down through the side boarding? You know, I mean, there's not really much security there. It's gonna be right next to a speedway where they sell alcohol. You know, what makes you not think they're gonna cross the street and go buy alcohol and take it back to their rooms? Like Martine says, there's security, yeah, but there's also security at Bashas', you know, and we still get robbed. I mean, there's security, like you said, at Walmart, and they still get robbed. So security is not something that is very liable, okay? Another thing is what's really, really concerning is my niece went through rehab for a whole year in Phoenix, changing lives, okay? She went through rehab, came home, maybe for a year later, she was back on the same stuff. What makes you think that these people are gonna change in 30 days? You know, to find jobs and a home and a car, or whatever they need to get. What makes you think that they're gonna do it in 30 days? Okay? My concern is, I got custody of 3 of her kids. So I don't want them to be around that kind of situation again. And like I said, we live right behind them, where they can see us and we can see them. And I don't think it's very secure for our kids and all the other kids around the neighborhood to have something like this in that property. When it was a hotel, yeah, there was cops called every time, because I used to call them too. But it wasn't a 30-day stay. They stayed for maybe 2 days, 3 days, maybe even a week. So my concern is, I don't need to put these kids of mine back in that situation to see people walking around. There's an aisle or an alley right behind, between my house and theirs, that they could walk through back and forth on. And I don't want my kids to be scared to be playing outside because of that. So to me, I don't think it's a good place. I think they should look into something else somewhere else, if that's what you guys want to do, is help people. But I don't think that is the proper area. To me, they might need monies right there and then, so they're gonna go start stealing around our neighborhood, and I don't need that either. So, but mainly my concern is my kids.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's 3 minutes, thank you. Please state your name.
I'm Pastor David Hakes. I am the pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church a couple of blocks from here on the end of Main. And I belong to the Ministerial Association, the Gila Valley Ministerial Association. I'm part of the group that is remodeling the respite center next door. And the fellow that, Vaughn, that has been working on this with everybody, wasn't able to be here tonight, so I haven't met anybody. But I said I would come and speak what I know. I can be sympathetic to everything that's been said. I live in this community fairly close to this too. I have some of the same concerns, but there's some facts we need to recognize that maybe help put this in perspective. Our community is known as a real drug community. The whole thing, the whole city. I was warned when I moved here, do you really want to go there? That is probably one of the worst places for drugs. I don't know if that's true, but that's a reputation we have. I do know we have a lot of homeless. I do know we have a lot of the problems people are talking about. I really think it's good if we can try to do something to help that situation. I think that's what this is about. The people who do drug treatment oftentimes fail. Yeah, more often than not, they're going to fail. It's not good. And if they fail, we keep trying and we keep trying, and if they keep failing, guess what? They're going to die. That's what it's about. I don't really want that in my neighborhood any more than anybody else does, but they're already here, and it's already going on. And so we can say, well, not in my neighborhood. Well, you know, it's in our neighborhood. That's a busy traffic situation. Yeah, it sure is. And the problem is there already. It's not, we're not inviting it. It's already there. I moved here from the suburbs of Chicago, so that busy intersection doesn't seem all that terribly busy to me, but it is one of the busiest intersections here. I live on 191, so when the trucks come, they go right by my door. And I don't like it any more than the rest of you do, but that's where we live. My understanding, because we've had some meetings on this from our perspective, and Vaughn has talked to these folks, and so he's shared some perspective. We're hoping to work out, perhaps they may share some offices in our building. Our building is going to be primarily showers and washing machines to help people clean up. Most of the homeless have mental problems, and they're not going to come to our facilities, and we're not going to be able to help them. But there's a few that we hope to help. There's a few that this outfit could really help. And we're not going to get the majority, but we could get some. I'm going to share, I might insult you guys on this, but when I moved to this community, I noticed that there's a lot of really junky stuff around here. And when we were working with zoning for the respite center, people said, oh, we don't want a respite center there because this is the main entrance and we want it to look nice. I agree. And we said at the time, the respite center is gonna look a whole lot better than it has. It's a junky little office. Your hotel is a junky little place. And my understanding is the owner wants to clean it up and remodel and make it look nice so we can be proud of our city. Frankly, I wish we could do that a whole lot more other places too, because we have a lot of that. So yeah, I'm with you guys. There's lots of issues. We need to discuss them. We need to know what they are. But just blocking anybody trying to help isn't going to solve our problems. The problem is already here. And so that's all I wanted to say. I don't think I'm on either side. I just wanted to address some of the stuff that's being talked about.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your comments. Please state your name.
Good evening, my name's Adam Hoops. We have the Casa Manana restaurant and have for the past 18 years directly across the street from this proposed property. I have a very pragmatic approach to the proposed intention for this property. It is a noble reason to have this this endeavor. It needs to happen, especially in our community. The purpose of rehabilitation in any sense is to restore and to basically help an individual or a family restore that balance to a more natural life. I cannot think of a worse location to have that sense of balance and restoration to a family, specifically for women. Women are very sensitive, so are children. And to have the noise and the commotion of a very busy intersection, a lot of traffic, a lot of sirens, sounds that could reignite images, feelings, things that could impact a woman and her children that would make it difficult and even more difficult to seek that restoration and the rehabilitation that is desperately needed. As a business owner, I love my neighbors. I feel like we have a fun little neighborhood, both business and residential, but our neighborhood is special to us. And where these people that are seeking that rehabilitation, it needs to be somewhere where it's quiet, somewhere where there's some solitude so that they can seek and achieve true healing through that rehabilitation process. I absolutely love that little motel. I remember seeing it as a child, like it was just a cozy little property, and I know some improvements have been made, but the location is not correct for the proposed intention on this zoning, the rezoning for this. And so that is why I am opposed to it, but I am not opposed to the idea of the necessity of this rehabilitation in our community, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another comment. Please state your name.
Larry Ellerman. I own the repair shop on the corner right next to the hotel, the proposed property. My concern is, like a lot of people that live there, there's a lot of riffraff basically coming through there. And maybe it's just a stigma that this type of facility would draw more of that, whether it will or not, I don't know. But as a business owner, I've been working hard to try to build that business up to clean up my shop. It still has a lot to go. But I have everyday customers that are expressing concerns that this facility's coming. And whether it's valid or not, that's my livelihood. And so my concern with, like Adam, is what you're doing is great. It's probably needed, but I too believe that it's not probably the best place for it. It's just that, talk about the gentleman from Chicago. I'm sure that intersection's not like some of them in Chicago, but believe me, if you stand in my shop for one day, the noise and I mean, unbelievable. It's not comforting, and it couldn't be comforting for people trying to settle their lives down.
There's a reason I'm not still in Chicago.
So I hate to say I'm opposed to it, but it's not helping my business. And there's other business owners, I'm sure that their customers are the same thing. The lady who has to lock her doors because of the situation in the neighborhood. This isn't gonna make it better, I don't believe. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
My name is Doug Lepick. I live at 680 South 2nd Avenue, right by the Coke plant.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone, please?
Pardon?
Could you get a little closer, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
And my concern is I don't have a problem, but I want to know who is going to monitor what actually is going to be put in. I want it in writing, no changes. If it's for women and children only, and how are they going to be released daily? And what are the limitations of them doing it? What type of facility coordination, along with, now they said nurses, who is going to monitor this? Does the state? Does the individual owner? If the individual owner, I don't see anywhere, I don't think I've done anything in my life without monetary gain at mine. And I don't see any monetary gain here. And I think, I don't care who you are, there has to be some type, whether it's a church, religious organizations are very financial. There's no such a thing as free in this world. So the monitoring of the facility is the thing. What actually is going to be put in? Is it women and children, or is it going to be homeless? Is it going to be drug addicts? Is alcohol? I want a list of everything that is going to be done, how it's going to be controlled, how it's going to be monitored before it's actually given out. If we know the actual facts, I have no problem with it. Yes, I live there, and I do have a problem with the homeless people, but I'll tell you, you're not going to help the homeless in this area because they want to be homeless. I know. They're probably 60% are Native American. They can go to the reservation. They want to live here. They enjoy their life. And you're not going to control that. But the monitoring of the situation, I've heard so many different things. Is it women and children? How are they monitored? What is their release time during the day? What are the nurses? What are they going to be LPNs, RPNs? What type of mental psychiatry? What type of people are going to be there to monitor the people that are in there? It's been vague. Everything's been out there. This is all about the facility, and I agree with it. If the facility is monitored properly, if it is, who is going to monitor this? Is it the state or is it this whoever this guy is. I don't see any reason for doing something because he's a nice guy. We know too many politicians.
Okay, is that 3 minutes?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It sounds to me like if the conditional use permit was approved and that this facility would require a state license, and that state license would address some of the concerns with the medical professionals having the professional license required for them to do those jobs.
Correct. The state does monitor that. They have a representative that comes out and to see that, you know, everything is kept in order. They do require RNs as well as PAs as well as a licensed MD to go ahead and go review their work and, you know, what treatments or whatever that they're suggesting is being adhered to. So they are all licensed and credentialed by the state of Arizona.
Okay. Any other comments from the public?
I just have a quick question. Now, you're gonna have the licensed nursing and medical and all that stay in the facility 24/7 then?
Yes, they will rotate, so there's not going to be just one licensed nurse.
So do you have rooms for them too? And if you do, how many more rooms are left for the actual?
Ma'am, they will run 8-hour shifts. They're not gonna stay in the facility, but the shifts will be continual for 24 hours. They're at the front of the hotel that will be used to provide treatment and consultation. They have to go through the front to go out of the hotel. They have to check in and check out. For them, they cannot just go through any gate. Those 2 gates are locked. The front of the office, where we have the main building, that is where they're provided meals, consultations, and treatment. They have to check, they will be in the rooms. They will go through the main office to check out, to go out, check in, to come in. So they're not just able to freely roam around, to go outside and come back in.
Unless they break through the sites. They've done it before, so, when you had it.
Okay, any?
We can't speak
I
on.
live there, so I don't know.
Any more?
We can't speak on actions that. have
Any more
happened.
comments from the public? Any more comments from the public?
I want to add one more thing. There was a concern about the noise of the traffic. All the rooms have been remodeled we have brick walls then we also put drywalls. The windows are also double pane, so they reduce a lot of noise. You have to imagine, we ran it as a hotel. If it was too noisy, nobody will come live there. I understand there's the traffic. Also, there's going to be, it's not just, you know, we're sitting there and giving them treatment. There's going to be gardening events. There's going to be different social classes that are, you know, it's not just a simple rehabilitation treatment that you just sit there and you have this plan. There's also more aspects. But if we do get approved, we can apply for the state license. All those guidelines we have to submit to the state, and those all will be provided. Those are open.
I would just like to add one thing. You cannot do anything about the air pollution with the trucks and with the cars. The air pollution is around there, and this is definitely not a healthy environment for kids.
I'm sorry, I can't hear the comment.
She said there's air pollution, and we cannot do anything about the air pollution.
No, that's everywhere.
How are you addressing air pollution in your house?
Well, I'm not living I'm not living next to the highway, you see? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so any other comments?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother issue. Any other comments? Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing? I
Yeah,
can
make
make motions.
yeah, I'll motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of closing the public comments in the public hearing? I'll say aye. All right, Ed, did we hear you?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion passed. The public hearing is now closed. We'll now move on to item number 7. This, item number 7 is for the commission to discuss the conditional permit. This is a discussion for the commission only. And we've had our time for presentation, for questions, and addressing concerns. So this is now the commission's opportunity to discuss what we've heard and to make a recommendation to the city council. Tonight, all we do is make a recommendation. The recommendation will then go to the city council. The city council will make the decision. I want to say I do appreciate everyone's comments, and we will take your comments into consideration. I do feel like everybody's comments are valid, and everyone does have a right for their concerns to be addressed and to be heard. At the same time, the petitioner also, has a right for to use their property. I'm a big believer in private property use. So tonight's conditional permit request is to look at, is this use conforming with the zoning? Does it make sense? And I'm going to go ahead and open up our discussion with the commission. Really quick, as we open, I have a question that I need to get clarification on. In our packet, we do have the application for the conditional use permit. It is dated December 20th of 2021, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They were looking at this project for quite a while, and so they weren't ready to move forward until now.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the correct application.
Yes, ma'am.
One question I do have is at the bottom of the page, the description of the request is blank. Is that just because there's a letter that goes with it?
Yes, ma'am. There wasn't enough room, and so that
So the description is the conditional use supplemental requirements.
Yes, ma'am.
Graham House LLC Rehabilitation Facility.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't mind, I would like to read this again. I think originally I only read the hours of operation, but I do feel like this could address some of the questions tonight, so if you don't mind, I would like to read it just because we do have a lot of visitors. We normally don't have a lot of public, so this is kind of exciting. I actually like that the community is getting involved, so. Okay, so the conditional use permit, the description of the request says, Graham House LLC will be a community rehabilitation facility to assist individuals to recover from alcohol addiction. Graham House LLC staff will include full-time medical personnel to implement the recovery programs. The property will be used similarly to an extended stay motel with new patients or guests coming and staying for a few weeks until they complete the recovery program. The similar use will minimize the impact of the surrounding property and will bring a benefit by adding new jobs to the Safford community. A schedule for development including phasing if proposed. Graham House LLC will be completing any changes in one phase. It will consist of a remodel of some of the rooms and office to accommodate the new proposed use as a rehabilitation facility. And then again, hours of operations state, because this will be an in-care rehabilitation facility, staff will be on site 24/7, but open hours to the public will be limited to normal business hours or by appointment. And it has already been clarified that there will be a curfew for residents. So the purpose is for a rehabilitation facility, and then it specifies for recovery from alcohol addiction. There really isn't anything in this that says for women and children. Is that correct?
Correct. At the time they wrote this, they did not put that in there. If you'd like to ask the applicant directly.
Well, I think my question to you, Director Brickell, would be, are we even allowed in zoning or conditional use permit to restrict use by gender? Is that even allowed? I would think it,
So they are allowed in their facility to restrict use. We as a city are not.
okay, so just to clarify, a conditional use permit could not set restrictions on gender, on who could live in a facility. That would be left up to the owner of the property to determine how they're going to use the facility.
Yes, you could require that if there are background checks.
Okay.
That you could require, but you cannot eliminate one gender or the other.
Or probably even age.
Correct.
Okay.
Race, age, any of those
Any of the
things.
protected class. Okay,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
what I thought. I just wanted to get more information. Any questions? Do you guys mind if I ask Ed for any comments?
Go for it.
Since it's hard to hear him. Ed, do you have any comments that you would like to make on this request?
No, I've got, well, I do, I am a little concerned about that. It seems a little wishy-washy as to just exactly what it's going to be used for. So I do have that concern. I do think it has good possibilities, and I think the city council has the opportunity, or should have the opportunity, to say, yes, this is the type of facility we would like to see there, and how we would like to get done. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
I agree with Ed that it feels like on the paperwork we have in front of us, there's 3 different ideas. And all of them would fall underneath the umbrella of the proposed use, but I'm not confident that any of them are decided on yet. And without having that decided on, I mean, in the paperwork, it says alcohol addiction. Twice tonight, we've heard that it could be for women and children. And then we also heard that it could be for drug addiction as well. And I think those are all needed in this valley. I wish that the applicant would have a more clear path to what they wanted to do. I'm confident that the state licensing would take care of that side of it. I don't have any concerns with that. My concern is who would be there, and in that part of town is my biggest concern. And one thing that wasn't brought up during the meeting, we had a copy of an email from Mr. DeMasi in our packet. We requested minutes from the meeting in July, on July 22nd, which we did not get. He said that the main question from the 6 residents that attended for the July 22nd meeting was the following. 1, safety of the neighborhood from vagrants and crime that, according to the residents in attendance, was a common issue with the Tour Rest Motel when it was in operation. If the conditional use permit Z7621 was approved, how would the residents be guaranteed that this will not be a continued problem? And then from Mr. DeMasi says, we believe that the answers given on this pressing question was satisfactory to all in attendance. But from the amount of people that have come tonight in front of us, I do not believe that to be true. So I'm a little concerned that none of this is adding up, in my opinion.
Well, I believe that the conditional use permit is a request to use this as a rehabilitation facility, which
Specifically for alcohol.
which in our code, what we're really doing is a conditional permit for a shelter facility, which does not specify any requirement for drug rehabilitation, alcohol rehabilitation. It could really be any of them. I would like to read the definition just for clarification that we received in the packet. It says section 17.08.040 definitions of the municipal code of the city of Safford defines a shelter facility as shelter facility means a supervised, publicly or privately operated shelter designed to provide temporary housing accommodations to indigent, needy, homeless, or transient persons or families who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. The shelter facility may also provide ancillary services such as counseling or vocational training. So the permit tonight is for a shelter facility. I think the applicant has tried to do their best to explain the use that they are planning for to address the concerns of the community. But this permit doesn't, in the code, specify, is it for drugs, is it for alcohol? It's for counseling, and that counseling could be for rehabilitation for a number of things. So I personally, in my opinion, based on the definition that the city has, that's what needs to be considered for the additional use permit. That's my take on it, is we need to go by the code, the definitions. That's just my take on it.
And if we're going by the definition of temporary housing for indigent, needy, homeless, or transient persons, or families who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, that is a very broad definition.
But that is the definition that the city has. So we have to make our decision based off of code, definitions. That's what we're held to, in my opinion. Definitely we need to consider the concerns that were brought up tonight. I think the concerns that were brought up tonight are valid, even for a shelter with the definition that the city has. I just don't feel that there's any way that we can stipulate who uses a facility based on age or gender, in my opinion, because those are protected class, and there's nothing about that in the city's definition. Any other comments?
Yes, to start with, I'd like to say I feel like there definitely is a need for something like this in our area. I've lived here all my life, in the valley. You go by the park, by the swimming pool there, and there's people out there. I think I've heard people say, and I was in the school business for a number of years as a school district superintendent, and I visit with lots of parents. And I know there's a real concern that we have a lot of homeless people doing drugs and alcohol and things of that nature, and I hear they're staying in this motel and that motel and that type of thing. So I do feel like there's a need. The other thing that I would say, I'd go a little bit further and say, there's very few of us that don't either have a relative or close friends and neighbors that have someone in their family that has experienced some type of problem. Having said that, as I look at these, this confusion and lack of understanding, as one of the fellow commissioners said, the people were in pretty much satisfied with the response that they gave to the gentleman that wants to put this together. So I do feel like there's a need for this, but I just don't feel like that I'm ready to be supportive of it at this point. I just feel like, but I don't think we should just throw it out the window either. I feel like that there needs to be some type of compromise between what we can and can't do, and I probably need to let Jamie speak to that, because I don't know if, based on what our chairperson is saying, I think maybe we're getting into more personal feelings and not what the law actually says. But having said that, I can appreciate what the individuals have said this evening. And I think if I was living in some of those areas, I'd feel the same way. But I do feel like that there's a need for us to try to help the citizens. And the thing that I liked most about this was that it was gonna be people from Graham County. It wasn't gonna be people from maybe Tucson or Phoenix or somewhere else, and you know, they're gonna come to Safford. We have enough that come now. I don't think we need that. Having said that, we're not the ones that are gonna make that final decision. It's gonna be the city council. And my feeling is, I just don't feel like I'm ready to 100% vote to send it to the city council because I have some questions in my mind as far as exactly what the facility is going to be, and I wish there was a way that some way we could, from the people that are here and live in the area, and I think that's the purpose of that meeting. There could be some type of compromise, and maybe there would be some way we could come together, and maybe that's not possible, but that's my opinion.
I feel like there definitely is a need in our community for a service like this. It's basically a way for someone who's come out of rehab to transition to independence. And it's definitely needed. And so I really feel like the question tonight, I think nobody here disagrees that it's needed. I think everybody here has expressed that there is a need for the facility. It's more of, is this the right location? Right. And some of the concerns that have been brought up is that it's a busy intersection with a lot of traffic. A lot of facilities like this usually are not found in residential areas. They're usually found more in a commercial area, somewhere closer where people can walk to a convenience store or, you know, walk somewhere to go shopping. I do agree it's a busy road. And I don't know. I don't even know if I'm allowed to make a recommendation, but because it was brought up tonight, I am going to throw it out there. But there was something brought up tonight about talks of purchasing the property to the north. I think that would be a great idea only because it opens up an opportunity for possibly access from the north instead of access from the highway, which would be safer. Anyways, I'm just throwing that out there. As far as addressing the concerns for safety, having access off of 4th Street instead of the highway sounds a lot safer. So I'm just throwing that out there for future talks if there's any possibility for that. I think that's a great idea. I feel that the current use of the property as a motel has the potential for more transient activity than a rehabilitation facility. Just because a motel, you have people coming and going for 2 or 3 nights. It sounds like the rehabilitation facility is going to have a 30-day program. So people would be there for 30 days. There's going to be security. There's going to be background checks. I feel like what's been presented tonight, to me, the rehabilitation facility sounds more secure and less transient than what the existing use is at this current time. That's just my take on it. So for me, the only concern is the busy highway. That's my really only concern, because I feel like the transient activity is going to be there whether this is approved or not. But the busy highway, I can see why that would be a concern, mostly if there were children there, but I don't feel like we can put any stipulation on any recommendations on the age of who can stay at the property. So that's, even though it's a concern, it's not really anything that we can make a requirement.
I've read over the definition, I don't know, 100 times now, sitting here. And to me, this sounds like, the definition of this sounds like a homeless shelter, to me. Because it says, may also provide ancillary services. So if this was approved by us and then ultimately went on to the city council, it doesn't have to be a rehab facility. It could be a homeless shelter, because that is what the definition is. And because of the broad definition of the city code and the lack of direction by the applicant on what exactly it would be, I would like to make a motion to not recommend this to the city council.
Before we make a motion, I have a couple more questions of clarification, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I respect your motion. We'll get to it in 1 minute, but I did want to go over a couple more things. Commissioner Hancock expressed that he still had some questions. So one of my questions would be is it a possibility to table this to get more information and get more questions and possibly make a decision when we have a larger quorum? Tonight we only have 4 people. So if we could table it to get answers to more questions, how would that happen?
Yes, Madam Chair, you may table it until the next meeting, the next regular meeting, or you may table it to a specific date in the future. If you would like to allow the applicant to gather more information and answer specific questions related to this use, that is a choice that you may make.
Okay. So I do want to point out that yes, this definition of a shelter facility is very broad. However, we can make conditions for this specific conditional use permit for security, background checks, curfews, things that would make it safer for the community. That's just a thought that I want to throw out there. That although we may be restricted for specific use for age and gender, we can make conditions for security, background check, and curfews. Is there anyone here tonight that feels the need to get additional information to make a decision? Any of the commissioners? Ed?
No.
My concerns are with the broadness of the definition, so I don't feel like I would need any other information.
Okay, and the definition is not changing, so, okay. Do you?
Well, I just would like to in the event that at some point we could reach a consensus or an agreement, felt like I think a number of the people that have commented today or this evening have indicated they feel like there's a need for something like this in our community. And I agree with that. Having said that, I just wonder with all of the things about the noise and kids coming and going and breaking into things and shoplifting or being destructive, none of us want any of that type of thing to be a part of this. And I just wonder, is there any way that this could be monitored in such a way? I don't think anybody wants to go in and build a nice facility and have the city say, well, we're going to approve this for a month at a time. And if we have all these problems, we're shutting her down. But in some ways, it'd almost be nice if you could say, if it doesn't work, we're going to shut her down. Having said that, I just don't feel like I'm ready enough, and maybe we're looking at too big a picture. You know, we're trying to include, I think that's what you're indicating, is we're looking at things in addition to just what the code calls for. And so I would like to get a little information from you concerning what your feeling is.
Madam Chair,
Please
Commissioner
go ahead.
Hancock, this code was passed, this definition was passed by the City Council in 2019 as a result of the previous respite center discussion that the earlier gentleman was speaking on. So it's a very new addition to the code that went through the public comment process and was approved by council in 2019. I have recommended for approval because as I read the code as staff, I do not see a violation of the code. And so that is what I have to base my decision on. And that's where I came up with my recommendation to you because of the code. It's very recent. It was adopted in 2019 after significant public input, and with the security requirements and that kind of thing, I just don't see a violation of the code. And that is where my opinion came from.
Thank you. I am leaning more towards recommending that the city council approve the permit, only because I do understand the concern of the busy highway. But existing as it is, the motel is still a property that is used for housing. A motel is where residents stay, and it's still a busy highway. So to me, the use is just changing more toward a long-term stay, which is less transient than what is existing for the current use. The current use is still a place for people to stay overnight and to live. So to me, I don't see a big change in the request, other than with this conditional use permit, what we are adding is the security, the background check, the curfew. I just feel like those are all things that are going to improve the use of the property. That's my personal opinion. Because the way it is now, anybody can stay in that hotel. They're not going to have a background check. They're not going to have a drug test. They're not going to have a curfew. All of the things that could be added to this conditional permit, in my opinion, improve the use of the property and make it more secure. That's just my personal take. And I also agree with the director that there is nothing in this conditional use permit that goes against what the code and the definition is. That's just my take on it. But I definitely respect the opinions of the other commissioners.
And after hearing all that, I would still like my motion to stand, to not recommend this to the city council because of, if this is approved, if we recommend it to be approved, and it is ultimately approved, there, even with the stipulations to the use, security, and all of such, it could, it by definition could be only a homeless facility, and that is not what they are proposing, but there's not a reason that they couldn't be that, and I'm not so sure that that area is the place for a facility like that, so I would still make a motion to not recommend this to the city council.
Okay, so I think it sounds like nobody wants to table it. So we have a motion. I think we need to make an official motion, and I believe when we make a motion, we're required to state why. If we're...
Yes, Madam Chair, and I believe that he just did.
That was enough.
So
Okay.
you have a motion, and now you will need a second.
Okay, we have a motion to not recommend the approval of the conditional use permit. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Hancock. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those who disapprove say nay. And I am a nay.
Commissioner Ragland, would you like to vote yea or nay to not recommend the approval?
I would vote yes.
Okay, so the motion is passed. We have 3 that approve the motion to deny the conditional use permit. So this motion to deny the conditional use permit will go to the city council. The city council will now make the decision. So what has been presented tonight does not necessarily mean that'll be the outcome of the city council. They will just consider that we have recommended that this be denied. Again, I thank you everyone for sharing your comments. I respect your concerns. And I do think this is needed, and I hope that there will be a way to find a place for this facility. If it's not here, that maybe it can be found somewhere. I just know it's really needed, so that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Okay, so we will now move on to item number 8, project updates and announcements from our director.
Yes, ma'am. We will be having a meeting next month. We have a rezone coming up, and you had requested a report from me on tiny homes. It looks like we're going to have applications coming up quite frequently now. Would you like me to still present that at the October meeting? I'd be happy to.
Yes, please.
Okay.
That'd be great.
And we have a few residential developments possibly coming in. Everyone's aware there's Starbucks on Highway 70. And if anybody has questions for me, my phone number is on the agenda, and my business card was in the back. If anybody is interested in serving on this commission, we have openings. And
you see how much fun we have.
You see how much fun we have. And so I welcome anyone to give me a call, discuss things. I think the way that communities move forward is open and honest discussion, and we all don't have to agree. And I appreciate the way that everyone was respectful for the most part, and that we can have honest and open discussions. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on now to item number 9, which is a call to the public for non-agenda items. Has anybody filled out a request for non-agenda items? All right. We'll now move to item number 10, which it sounds like we already did cover. There will be a meeting in October. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye.